This is Matt Armstrong, a huge British YouTuber who is absolutely obsessed with cars. He specializes in buying wrecked cars and rebuilding them in his videos. Today we are going to watch his journey repairing a 2019 BMW M5 F90. This video is likely going to be very long because we are going to go through every single step to understand how these cars get repaired and return to a brand new state. It's a mechanical journey that I hope you'll find entertaining. Now, Matt didn't buy the specific copy from an auction or a resale site. A friend of his actually bought it, but discovered a major defect that he couldn't fix himself. So he decided to offer it to Matt to see if he wanted to buy it and work on it. We'll talk about the problem the first buyer faced that made him scared to finish the project and decide to sell it just to get rid of it. But first, let's take a tour around the car and see what the problems are. As is usual with car accidents, there's always one angle that looks perfectly fine, while the other side has parts that are completely irreparable. Clearly, the front of the car took the hit. The bonnet hood needs changing, and the front bumper is basically non-existent. The right fender needs changing too. The car will need new headlights on both sides, and the oil coolers will definitely need swapping out. There are also a few hidden broken pieces that will be removed when the time comes. Inside, all the airbags have deployed, so that's a guaranteed replacement job. All of that is considered simple. The real boogeyman here is the chassis. Obviously, damage to the car's structure significantly reduces the model's value, and it can reach a point where the car can never return to its safe condition, ending up being sold entirely for parts. Matt bought the car for around £30,000. He's going to bring out a whiteboard and write down all the costs. In its current state, it doesn't move. The engine doesn't turn over, and even if it was working, the oil cooler lines disconnected after the crash, and all the engine oil leaked out. So the plan right now is to move the car by pushing it into the workshop. And here comes the first problem. The car was in a specific gear at the time of the accident. After the impact, the car cut power completely, shut down, and locked itself in place. The transmission is automatic, so it won't move unless it's in N or neutral, which disconnects the engine power from the transmission and subsequently the wheels. But to get it into neutral, you obviously need electricity. He tried jump-starting it with an external pack, but nothing happened. You'll see him here connecting two cables to the body. The red clamp is positive and always has a designated spot under the bonnet. The blue clamp, or sometimes black, is the ground, which connects to any metal part of the car body. The battery registered 7 volts, meaning it's completely dead. A normal reading should be 12 volts. After about 10 minutes, nothing happened, and the battery was still sleeping. So he brings a larger external charger and connects it directly to the car battery. The battery's in the trunk, boot, and since there's no power, he can't open the trunk to get to the battery. So he removes the back seats to make access easier. He could have used the emergency release latch, but he didn't know how it worked on this model. BMW changed the location and method for opening a locked trunk from the outside. They implemented a few ways. Some have a pull cord, or there might be a hidden pull cab in the rear armrest. The external charger powered the battery and sent electricity to the car's electronics. The most important step here is shifting the transmission to neutral, but the gear selector refused to shift, and the electronic parking brake was engaged and wouldn't release. First thing he does is disengage the brakes. He connected a diagnostic tool and set the brakes to maintenance mode to retract them. Then he lifts the button, but nothing happens. However, when he lifted the button and pressed the foot brake at the same time, the lock finally released. Step 2, getting the gearbox into neutral. BMW automatic transmissions have an emergency system to release the gear. It depends on the manufacturer of the gearbox itself. Some have a lock with a plastic key on top of the gearbox, accessed under the cup holders right in the center console, but in this M5, the gearbox is made by the German company ZF. It has a small lever underneath the gearbox. Once pulled and locked into place, the engine disconnects from the transmission. This lever is supposed to have a specific tool to pull and lock it, but here he uses plastic zip ties to pull the lever. The first one was too weak and snapped easily, but he uses a few more and it finally works. And so the journey of repairing this beast begins. The price he paid to buy the car is exactly £32,000. All calculations will be in pounds because, as I mentioned, he is British. He starts by removing the bonnet, which is made of lightweight aluminum and will be replaced entirely. No repairs here. Underneath it, the dangerous defect that will cost a lot of effort and time to fix is revealed. It's a very severe impact to the shock tower, strut tower. It's not just a crack, it's snapped in half. This part is made from a single cast aluminum mold, and welding isn't really an option for this metal. There are ways to weld aluminum, but it's not as easy as welding steel. Changing this damaged part means they have to remove the entire engine to clear space for the work. The shock tower took the entire impact, but luckily it didn't transfer it to the parts behind it in the chassis structure. It's impossible to be sure if the chassis is twisted or not until he takes measurements against the repair catalog. True, it needs work, but in the end, it's just one piece, and if he can change it, he wins. But the beast is still sleeping. We aren't sure if the engine runs properly or not. It absolutely must run first before starting repairs, because if there is a problem, a crack, or even a broken part, the car will cost a fortune to fix. He doesn't know how much oil is in the engine. Since around 2010, most BMWs don't have the traditional dipstick we know. They did this because the digital gauge on the dashboard is more accurate, and eliminating the external opening reduces the chance of water entering during rain. First, he bypasses the oil path to stop it entering the broken oil coolers. He makes a loop using a hose, connecting the start and end ports so the oil circulates directly without cooling temporarily. I honestly don't know why he chose such a long hose, but it does the job. He opens the metal cover, undoes the bolts, and drains the engine oil from the sump plug underneath. The F90 M5 engine takes about 10 liters of oil, but only 3.5 liters came out. He pours it back into the engine and tops it up to 7 liters. The quality of the oil, old or new, doesn't matter right now. He just wants to run the engine to verify it's healthy. The car sat for a long time, so he removes the air intake pipes leading to the turbos to ensure there are no broken pieces or debris that could damage the turbo fan blades. If you remember, outside the workshop, the car had power, but the engine wouldn't turn over. He tries to push start engine again, but it still won't work. He remembers he still has the zip ties on the emergency transmission release, so he goes underneath to cut them, but the car still makes that annoying clicking sound and won't start. There is a fuse box design located directly after the battery. It has 2 connections, one for the car's electronics and the other for the starter motor. He tries a workaround to bypass a potentially blown fuse, but the connections don't add anything new. The engine isn't turning. He kept pressing start engine repeatedly until the engine finally turned over, but it cuts out immediately. Anyway, the old battery was dead, so he buys a new one and removes the fuse box from the car. Here the problem is revealed. The red cable connects directly to the battery, then splits into 2 paths. The right path powers the electronics, and the left path is responsible for sending power to crank the car. This part is also split into 2 parts. One goes to the alternator and the other to the starter motor. Under them is a rather large fuse, pyro fuse, and there is a break here that prevents proper connection. The dealership doesn't sell this piece separately. The entire primary fuse box would be expensive. However, he finds just the replacement part on eBay for only £22. He reassembles everything and rigs a temporary connection between the severed battery paths just until the new part arrives. Finally, the engine starts and runs smoothly. Now the stage of removing the engine. In this version, the engine drops out from the bottom, not the usual way we know where it's lifted out. Probably due to its massive weight, it's easier to undo the mounts and lift the car body up with the hydraulic lift. He undoes the Allness connections and plugs attached to the engine. He removes the entire wiring harness. This M5 has 2 ECU units, one on each side of the engine and 2 harnesses. He disconnects them all. Then he disconnects the fuel lines and coincidentally finds one that needs replacing. He removes some plastic covers, which allows him to undo the bolts holding the brace that keeps the exhaust cans in place. He removes the entire exhaust system, then he removes the heat shield above the exhaust tunnels. The last step from underneath is disconnecting the drive shaft prop shaft, which transfers power from the gearbox to the rear differential. This shaft is connected to the gearbox by just 4 bolts. On the other side, it enters the differential housing. They manage to loosen it using a meter-long metal bar to get more torque. Next system to disconnect is the steering. He removes a metal skid plate covering the oil pan. Through a very tight space, there is a bolt and clamp disconnecting the steering rack. After that, he removes the front wheels and disconnects the links going to the hubs, including the electronic brake pad wear sensor and brake fluid hoses. Naturally, he removes all that, then the upper control arm holding the suspension. He goes to the gearbox and undoes the bolts securing it to the frame. The last thing holding the engine in place are the top bolts located in the shock towers. He raises the hydraulic lift, and the car body lifts up, leaving the engine, gearbox, and entire suspension system sitting on the ground. The size of the engine is truly gigantic. The whole assembly makes you feel this is much bigger than just a car. After removing the engine, he checks the measurements against the catalog and finds one area is off by 0.5 centimeter. However, he had already bought the crash bar and all the metal parts he needed to change. He discovers his measurements weren't very accurate and that the new part fits normally onto the car, which means the car's structure matches factory specs and is 100% sound. This chassis design here is like most street cars called a monocoque, a French word meaning single shell or single hull. It has many advantages, but the issue is the front design distributes impact in a calculated way. The most important parts are the two rails extending outward, the chassis legs or bones. These cannot